Carla Sands is a liar? Let's talk about it. If you do not know who Carla Sands is, she is the former US ambassador in Denmark. And the reason why I comment on this is because I'm Danish. So, Carla Sands tweeted this. I've seen this before. In Denmark, middle-class people can't afford to drive a car. They have a bike and take the train for long trips. My embassy driver would bike an hour in the snow to get to work. That is the future Team Biden wants for Americans. Is this what you want? This is just a lie. Everyone in Denmark knows this is a lie, and since Carla Sands have lived in Denmark, she knows this is a lie. Unless she has spent the entire time she was here in the basement of the embassy. But to everyone outside of Denmark, I'm going to prove this with a few numbers. So, in Denmark, we have 4.5 million people over 18 and we have 3 million cars. Meaning that per every 3 adults, there is 2 cars. This would obviously not be the case if the middle class did not have cars, so with this number alone, we can already conclude that this is a lie. This is less than in the US, where there's 3.3 cars for every 3 adults, but the difference is not because middle class families can't afford cars. So let's look at some statistics. These statistics count people living on the same address as families, meaning that if you live alone, you are a family by yourself. This is going to be important later. So when we use this definition of a family, 18% of families have 2 cars or more. This family is probably recognizable to most of the Western world. They live in small towns or rural areas, friends, families, shopping opportunities, and their children's school and daycare are spread over a large area, so both adults in the family need a car. Then there is the 44% of families that have 1 car. Some of these are single-parent families, some of these are single people living alone that just have a car. But these families still have 1 car per adult because there's only 1 adult, so they are not explaining the difference. The family that's explaining the difference is the 2-adult home with 1 car. This would be the typical middle-class, urban or suburban older couple or family. They will usually choose to have 1 car even though they are 2 adults. This would, for example, be my parents. They have a car, even though they both bike to work. They bike to work because it is almost as fast as driving when you live in a more central suburb. You don't get stuck in boring morning traffic and you get your body moving. They still like to have a car so they can go shopping, go on vacation, and go to the countryside on weekends. But having 2 cars between them would be unnecessary since they don't use it every day anyways. Now, let's look at the 38% that don't have a car. This is not classical middle-class families. In fact, 90% of couples with kids are in the 2 other categories, and to my experience, the 10% of couples with children that don't have a car are those that are relatively new parents and therefore often still live in the central city. But this is obviously not the largest part of this group. A big part of this group is young people living in the city. In fact, while almost 80% of families in villages or rural areas have cars, this is only true for 40% of people living in the city. Some of this is due to cost. A lot of the people in the city is young students, which is a pretty poor part of the population. But if you're young and living in the city, it's also really impractical to have a car. Let's take myself as an example. I don't have a car. But even if I were to get a car for free, I don't know what I would use it for. My commute is literally significantly faster on bike than in a car because I live in such a central part of the city. And even when I have had the option to take a car on longer journeys, I have chosen not to. I'm going to explain why. For a period of time, I lived and studied in Aarhus, but my friends and family were in Copenhagen. Commuting the distance by train and by car took about the same amount of time, which is around 3.5 hours. Our long-distance trains has Wi-Fi and electrical outlets, so 3 of those hours on the train were my study time. So if I went home for a weekend, I could spend 6 hours studying on the train if I studied back and forth. This meant that I could spend my time in Copenhagen with my friends and family instead of studying. If I had taken the car, I would have wasted 6 hours behind the wheel, and therefore I would have to catch up on studying while I were in Copenhagen instead of spending time with my friends and my family. Therefore, many people in my situation chooses not to have a car even if they can afford to. So, let's recap. Denmark has a lot of cars, 2 per 3 adults, and the reason why they have fewer cars than in the US is not because middle-class family can't afford cars, but because young people in the city doesn't have cars, and some urban and suburban family chooses to only have 1 car. Now, let's review Carla Sands' tweet. The first line is, I've seen this before, in Denmark, middle-class people can't afford to drive a car. This is clearly untrue. Just look at the number of cars. They have a bike and take the train for long trips. This is sometimes true, but often people are doing this even when they have a car, because a bike can be just as fast or faster if you're in the city, and on long journeys you waste time by taking the car instead of spending your time productively on the train. The next line is, my embassy driver would bike an hour in the snow to get to work. Either you're paying your embassy driver way too small salary, or he chooses to bike. That is the future Team Biden wants for Americans. Is it what you want? I don't live in the US, and you can vote for whatever future you want over there. I don't care, but don't do it based on these lies. Have whatever opinion you want, just base it on something else. Bye.